So in terms of research questions, and these are draft, I want to explore how can my role as an induction tutor be further developed? How do early career teachers and induction tutors talk about and represent their experience of induction? And how might early career narratives contribute to discussions around best practice in induction? Because a critique that I have, and I suppose this is where I started to question maybe some of this, is there was a pilot conducted by the Education Endowment Foundation. And before the induction policy in 2021 was released. And the intention was not to undertake a comparative evaluation of the programs, but to evaluate the modes of support and delivery with them. And they chose 98 schools. But what I question is why did they only choose schools that were graded good and outstanding? Why were they the only schools a part of the pilot? Why, when such an important piece of work was being done to address recruitment, retention, and attrition issues within the UK, why did they only choose those schools? Why not schools that requires improvement or you know, why did they not have different categories in terms of challenges with deprivation, etc.? I just want to know why is this the case, and I question it. And the other thing I question is that the findings of the report highlighted key issues that are still present and take place in terms of ECT induction. And there is a recruitment, retention, attrition crisis. And that's why I think this piece of research is so important, because it's not just my role to manage, it's not just my role to assess and support uh, flippantly, but it's really important that we coach future teachers in terms of supporting them to be the best that they can be so that they the profession is sustained and education is not just a deterministic machine, but actually the aspects of education that we value are at the forefront of teacher training. And Kelterman highlighted really importantly, we need to find a balance between internal and external pressures. You know, Ofsted, marketization of schooling, results. Should those be the things that drive professionalism within the profession because people are afraid of what might be published? Or those are tools, but actually, as a profession, should we not just be respected to build and develop in a way that we see fit? And you can also see that in terms of the universities who had to, reapply to see if they can continue with their teacher training to award QTS. Why not trust the professionals and the academics in terms of tr teacher training? And I think in terms of exploring my role, I have a responsibility to support the early career teachers within my school. Um, and a way that I need to do that is to listen to them, reflect on conversations, but also in order to improve my practice, speak to other induction tutors because there is no formal training currently for induction tutors. There's formal training for mentors, there's formal training for ECTs, but as a group, induction tutors, I think, have such an important role, but yet the support isn't necessarily there. What I would say is there are strengths to this. There are strengths in terms of now mentors are mentors. They don't assess ECTs, and that allows a supportive relationship. So the distinction between mentor and induction tutor, I think, is good. And it is DFE supported and it's priority for schools, and there is funding. But I think the challenges are it's still time. Time is always a bone of contention in education and for teachers because there's so many demands. External pressures as well, I think that is still there. and the intention and outcome of the intention and outcome in relation to policy. Is this being driven by the recruitment and retention policy from 2018, or is this being created because we value professional development amongst our early career teachers and want to support them to remain in the profession? And that kind of brings me to the end. Professor Spenglove said it really nicely, that we should focus on compassion for teachers through desire to restore the image of profession rather than the recruitment and retention cycle. And the key thing for me and where I'm at is exemplarity, not telling people this is how you should do it, but answering the question, what might work and what gives other induction tutors some support in developing that community of practice. So where I am, and I've picked this picture on purpose, this is how I thought it would be. This is the reality of my progress. But I have started to build a conceptual framework, and communities of practice feature heavily in that, because there's research that shows novice teachers coming together supports them. And the feedback that I've had from my UCTs also aligns with that. The role of induction tutors and also exemplarity, and what does that mean? So I've trialed semi-structured interviews, I've reflected on those trials, I've also reflected on my methodological positioning, even though initially I was like, what do you mean? I studied constructivism in 2012 in in St. Pat's in Thurles. That means I'm a constructivist. So I've really kind of opened my thinking and started to critically question myself. And here are just my next steps: to conduct semi-structured interviews with ECTs, but also induction tutors. I need to find a balance. I need to create a space for thinking and writing so that I can really progress with this, and further training on thematic analysis. I've attended one with Brown and Clark, but I feel like that's professional development that I would like more of. So thank you. I'm open to questions and also some feedback on how you balance work and research in order to get that much needed thinking and writing time. Thank you.
Well done, Denise. Fantastic presentation. We might open up the room and the online space to any questions for the next few minutes. That's just a few minutes. You can stop sharing there, Denise.
Yeah.
But any advice and questions for Denise are very welcome at this stage.
Denise, I really enjoyed your presentation. This is Colette Saunders.
Hi, Colette.
Yeah, your conundrum with the constructivism and the constructionism, I found myself in that space, and it's challenging to kind of think of yourself in one way but realize that something else might actually be the case. I love the amount of reflecting that you did, and that's coming through in listening to you speaking. I really enjoyed that. And some of the points you made about looking after the early career teachers as well. That's so important. So thank you very much for a very engaging presentation, and best of luck. And I think you found your thinking space in these NERI meets. The writing space, I don't know where that might be, maybe after an ERI meet. But yeah, it's well done, and I hope everything works out really great for you.
Yeah. Thanks, Colette.
Thanks, Colette. Suresh, we have your hand raised there. If you'd like to turn on your mic there.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you very much, Denise. I really enjoyed it. I'm not a teacher like you, but I was I guess I can borrow that word now, shamelessly academic. And I am teaching. I've been teaching for what, 12 years now. So it's my own teaching. I don't have, as a professor, and I just want to share this book with you. It's in the link that I sent earlier on. It's called Human Connections, Teaching Experiences in Chongqing, China. It's in the, if you save your quick chat, you can actually see it. It's on Jack Whitehead, who he had quoted on his action research. You can get this free copy by downloading it. Teaching to students who in English, but for them, English was was not their language. It was Chinese, and bonding it with connections. So just to give you a different spin. And as for your methods of, how you can engage yourself, I did that in terms of, like appreciative inquiry, etc. The passion, the joy of teaching, and seeing my students graduate. And now they've gone on from China to Northwestern University to LSE, and they're doing their LLM, and they've passed, and now they are even thinking forward of going to do PhD. So to me, like, wow, this is great. I don't know whether I was the catalyst, but whatever it was, it is wonderful to see students blossom. Thank you.
Thank you, Suresh. Any other questions or comments before we move on to our next bit of information? Jackie.
I just have a couple of comments. One is that I think this is really important work, Denise, and I think I'd say stay with the examination of your values and how they influence yourself and others. And my second point is on time. The one thing I found at your stage was that I had to give up some activities. Now, this is in concert with the people that this affects, of course, but I simply, for that period of time, I gave up a number of things. For example, I had a huge garden. I just stopped gardening. I mean, you can pick the activity, but you've got to, there isn't more time, but there could be fewer activities.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Thank you, Jackie.
Prioritizing what is really, really important for you at this stage, and making sure that happens. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Jackie.